The science gives us a reason to think differently about ourselves, and it's based on honest, truthful, factual information. If it's good science.
Mm-hmm.
And from that, we begin to think of ourselves differently, and we are changed in the presence of new understandings. It all comes down to our story. What we're talking about is our story. It doesn't have to be technical, but our story, our lives literally are based upon our story. We solve our problems, we choose our relationships, we heal our bodies, we choose our politics, we build our society, all based upon the way we've been taught to think about ourselves. And what's happening right now, and I think we all know this, is our story is changing.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a battle, Rob. There's a battle for our story. There's a battle for our thoughts, for our beliefs. There's a battle for our very humanness that is unfolding, and it's happening right in front of us. Many people don't recognize it because it is compartmentalized, but it is happening right now on the mainstream of the world stage. So I go back to those experiences as a scientist today through the eyes of what I now know. And I know that the most fundamental act, the most radical act of empowerment that any of us can embrace is to honor the deep truth of our story. Not the story necessarily that we've been coerced into accepting or believing, not the story maybe that came from our family or our religion or our education, academia or our political affiliations, but the true story of our relationship with ourselves, with the world around us, with one another, with the past, with the future, with the cosmos, and if we believe in a higher power. And in the presence of that story, we are changed, and that gives new significance to what's unfolding in our lives. It's a celebration that moves us from the fear into the freedom of self-mastery. And the science is now telling us literally the self-regulation of our own biology. What could be more powerful than to be able to self-regulate, upregulate and downregulate genes to enhance your immune response on demand, to awaken longevity enzymes on demand, to create resilience to a changing world on demand, deep states of intuition, and so much more? What could be more powerful than to awaken to that possibility now in the presence of a world that's changing faster than we can document it in our textbook? So it's a long answer to a short question, but the science for me, I recognized at an early age that it was a language that would help me personally to understand my relationship to the world that I was drawn to, and that comforted me in times of extremes. And I think that's true for all of us today.
We're going to see some pretty crazy stuff over the next few months. We are certainly living in the craziest of times, and it's a really important time, folks. It's actually a really empowering time if you look at it through the right type of eyes. You know, the world that we're heading into, or they're trying to head us into, is going to be a dystopia of the next level. We're literally standing right at the gates of hell with what they want to unfold and what they want to roll out with this whole surveillance and tracking grid that they're putting in place. It's really getting to the point now that the only hope we have is non-compliance. This is a huge opportunity for freedom, because the more they do this, the more people are waking up. And it's going to get to a point that, people are going to see the writing on the wall. And we have an opportunity to create a really good world here. We have an opportunity to free the entire human race here if people can get some focus. And it's time for people to put down all this stuff with everybody else. Doesn't matter what anybody did at this point, folks. Doesn't matter whether they've said the wrong thing here and they've done the wrong thing there. It doesn't matter. And they have the focus on freedom, then they're our friend. And we need to put all of this other petty stuff aside. We really do. It doesn't matter what people believe. Doesn't matter who they believe they are. Doesn't matter what they believe the earth is. Doesn't matter about any of it right now. What matters is freedom. And we need to get some focus on that. We need to unite as one human family, not one human nation, not one new world order or anything like that, but simply one human family with respect for each other's beliefs. It's okay for you to think completely different to me about whatever you want to think about. I don't care. All I care about is the fact that you're safe and you're happy and that you are free to explore yourself and to reach the fullest of your potential, because that's really what life is about. In Lakesh, you are my brother, you are my sister. It doesn't matter what your background is. It doesn't matter what you did. It doesn't matter what you believe. The one thing they're depending on is that we keep fighting with each other. We keep arguing over our belief systems. When we hear good information from someone, we go, well, he said something else reasonably earlier on, and so, we need to distrust him. People who do that, just get the information. If it's good information, get that information and run with that information. Doesn't matter what he did. Doesn't matter what they said. What matters is that we deal with the clear and present danger that we face. So that's what people have to do. Now's the time, folks. Now's the time for freedom. Now's the time for a unity of spirit. Sure, absolute diversity of consciousness, because we are all different. We are all completely unique, every single person. No one will ever see the world the way you do. No one will ever be able to look at reality through your eyes. But that doesn't matter. You're still my brother, and I still want unity with you. I still want a unity of focus, a focus towards freedom. Because once we overcome this hump, there could be a really, really beautiful world waiting for us on the other side. But that's going to depend on what we do now. It's going to depend on how prepared we are to put our egos down, to disregard whatever we believe to be true at the moment, because, ultimately we don't know with a lot of this stuff. We're not free enough to know. That's the problem with the whole truth movement, which I think is a loaded term as well, because the truth is no one really knows what the truth is. They might know some certain little truths, but the ultimate truth, what is that? And the problem is that we don't have the freedom to find out, because we're always arguing with each other over what we think the truth is. It's time we got over that, put our egos down, establish freedom, and then the truth will become apparent for all to see.
Yeah, let's get it right. We're all created by God. We're created by the thoughts of God. When we think, we create an energy field. When we think thoughts of love, forgiveness, and peace, and all the things we want to bring to the world, we create a certain kind of very positive energy. When we think thoughts of hate, of all these other emotions, of anger, of fear, we create another kind of energy, a very destructive one, which, if it's in big enough quantities, destroys the very life force of creation, which comes from the being some call God. The name I'm given is the Godhead. Now, if we can create by thought, what can the Godhead do? This master spirit at the center of all creation. He can create almost anything he wishes by thought, and he creates us by thought. Well, I'm saying that. What I'm saying is, but some people come to earth, Jesus was one, there were many more before him, who are actually part of the soul of the Godhead. It's God incarnate on earth. That's what Jesus was. That's what these other people were before. To try to bring the truth to a planet that has lost that truth for 12,000 years, and as a result of which we have taken this wondrous planet to the brink of not existence. The message that comes across all the time is the Godhead loves all of us as if there was only one of us. No one is special. But there are certain people who come to Earth at certain times, and to other planets too, at times of great crisis, to try to help to sort things out. And they are just the Godhead in a physical body. This great transformation of Earth that's already beginning is already underway, is being guided not by yours truly alone, but by the whole of creation. Because if this planet is destroyed, the whole of creation is thrown into chaos, because, planets and stars are not there because the Godhead fancies it. Wouldn't it be pretty? Everything is there. It has a purpose. It has a meaning. It has a reason for existing. And if one of the planets or whatever ceases to exist because of the way we treat it, then the whole of creation is threatened. And my goodness me, I'll tell you this, it is threatened very much at this time. It is a matter of years if we continue to turn out this energy of hate, of anger, and fear and all these other emotions that we have made into an art form on earth.
The first way to get focus is to find purpose. The way to find purpose is you must identify what it is that you have to be purposeful in. Right when you are struggling with what to do, who you are, what's your next move, you are in an identity crisis. You are struggling with just who you are. See, you have not discovered who you are. You have to discover who you are in order to move you forward. If no one ever gave you the directions, let me just say something. When you get up in the morning, you go get in the car or you walk out your door, you have a destination in mind. If you go outside with no destination, what do? You wander around. Once you don't have a destination, you are going to wander around. You cannot get in your car without a destination. Where do you drive? So you are in an identity crisis, the same thing I was in. So you have to find your purpose. So let me help you with this. If you are in this situation, the solution is the first thing. You have to do the thing that God gave you. You just have to identify your gift. That's the first thing. Until you do that, you can forget it. You'll never find your purpose. You'll never know your mission. You'll never know the reason. So I think we're in an identity crisis. I think you have to identify who you are and what your real gift is and pursue the gift.
One day after school, I walked by a store in Graz. So I went inside and I looked around and then I saw a magazine. I saw a bodybuilding magazine that had Reg Park on the cover. Reg Park was then a 3-time Mr. Universe. And I saw him on the big screen as Hercules. I read that and I said to myself, wow, this is the blueprint for my life. This is exactly what I want to do. I want to become a bodybuilding champion just like Reg Park. I want to get into movies just like Reg Park. And I want to make millions of dollars and be rich and famous just like Reg Park. Do you know how great it felt that I knew where I was going? Imagine the majority of people don't know where they're going. I knew where I was going, that I'm going to become this bodybuilding champion just like him. So it was just a question of how do you do it? I was so relieved because when you have a goal, when you have a vision, everything becomes easy. So people always ask me, when they saw me in the gym in the pumping iron days, they say, why is it that you're working out so hard? 5 hours a day, 6 hours a day, and you have always a smile on your face. And I told people all the time, I said, because to me, I'm shooting for a goal. In front of me is the Mr. Universe title. So every rep that I do gets me closer to accomplishing that goal, to make this goal, this vision turn into reality. Every single set that I do, every repetition, every weight that I lift will get me a step closer to turn this goal into reality. So I couldn't wait to do another 500-pound squat. I couldn't wait to do another 500-pound bench press. I couldn't wait to do another 2,000 reps of sit-ups. I couldn't wait for the next exercise. At the age of 20, I went to London and I won the Mr. Universe contest as the youngest Mr. Universe ever. And it was because I had a goal.
Your probability of finding a successful mate decreases. So we've evolved to have this very, very visually evident eye. And so when we're looking at each other, we're always looking at our eyes, because then we can tell where someone is pointed, and then we can tell what they're up to. And so we're hunting creatures, like we're aiming at a moving target and trying to track it all the time. And so you have to specify your aim, and the Future Authoring Program helps people specify their aim. And it's more than one aim. It's like you have a highest aim, which you might say is to be a good person. And then I would say, well, there's a more elaborated aim than that. It's like you want to be able to constrain malevolence and work to decrease suffering. It's something like that. That's the highest aim. And then you have to decompose that into the things you do each day so that there's a definite connection between all the micro actions and the macro aim, and then that gives dignity to what you do. I've told people to learn to use a schedule, and people often hate schedules because they act as their own tyrants, right? They say, well, you have to do this unpleasant thing, and then here's another unpleasant thing you have to do, and then you have to do this unpleasant thing, And you do that for about 3 days and you think, to hell with this, I'm not doing that, and you fall off the wagon. That isn't what you're supposed to do with a schedule. You're supposed to use it to design the days that you would like to have if you were taking care of yourself. And so some of that is, you wake up in the morning and you think, here's 5 things I have to do that if I don't do, my life will be worse. It's like paying bills, for example, or taking out the garbage. It's like you have to do those because otherwise things degenerate. So you got to put some of those in the schedule because otherwise tomorrow is worse than today, and that's a bad trajectory. But you also want to build in things, you've got to act in some sense like you're dealing with a relatively recalcitrant 9-year-old. It's like, well, here's some things you have to do, but here's some things that if you do, you could reward yourself with. And if you get the balance there between obligation and reward right, then you'll find that you're motivated to do the things. And that's what you want to do. You want to do that so it's sustainable across days and weeks and months. And so you got to treat yourself like a good boss would treat a valued employee, and not like a tyrant would treat a slave, because the slave will rebel. And, people say, well, I don't follow through on my plans. It's like, well, A, they're probably not very well formulated, and maybe you're doing them because of an external moral obligation or something. They're not really your plans, right? And B, you're acting like a tyrant and a slave, and that's a bad relationship to have with yourself. So you want to treat yourself with the same way. That's the golden rule, right? Treat other people as you would have them, treat other people as you would like to be treated. It works both ways. You also treat yourself like you treat other people properly. So that's a necessary thing, and often people don't do that. So I teach students usually, for this class, it was 3rd and 4th year students, and so this is at the University of Toronto. They're pretty smart kids. It's a hard university to get into, and they're pretty disciplined, and they're actually quite conservative, all things considered.
It's impossible to think of the impossible. It's not possible. So if you think it, it's possible. And if you live your life in possibilities instead of probabilities, you have a greater chance of finding happiness. Seriously, never live your life in probability. Probability is the probability of something happening. There's a statistic attached to a probability. 1 in every 3,000 people do this. That's a probability. A possibility has no stats attached to it. Live your life in possibilities and you're changing. Just change the way you think. It's not what you do for a living. It ain't how much you make. It ain't none of that. It's simply how you think. If you change your thought, you change everything. You change your attitude. You change your altitude. It's all that. It's the law of attraction.
It takes a lot of courage to allow yourself to grow in the face of scrutiny. See, everybody grows. Men, women, faith, bishops, everybody grows. But generally you grow in privacy and your struggles are kept private and you develop and you grow out of it. Hopefully you get out of it before anybody shoots you down. And it takes a lot of courage to say, I'm not there yet. And what I have had the courage over the years to say, I don't know everything. I've been willing to change. I've been willing to evolve. I've been willing to explain myself to people that I didn't even have to respond to. Because in the process of doing that, people begin to understand that you are not who they think you are.
If you want the future to change for you, you've got to change. If you don't change, the next 6 years of your life is going to be just like the last 6. You'll still be behind on your bills. You'll still be behind on your promises. If you will get better, everything will get better for you. What a clear message that was for me. If you'll change your philosophy, you'll change your habits. If you'll change and accept some new disciplines, if you'll turn the corner where you've been in the past, go for a new life for the future, all kinds of remarkable things will happen for you if you will change.
And so most people think their life is dictated by external circumstances. They spend their entire life trying to control what is outside of them. And the fact of the matter is you cannot always control the external factors that are impacting you in your life. The good news is it's the external things in your life that do not dictate the direction or the ultimate destination of your life. That is a fallacy. Listen to me when I tell you this. External circumstances do not dictate the ultimate destination of your life. It's an internal game. You and your faith, your God, are what will control the direction of your life, not the external things that are impacting you all the time. And this identity is that internal thermostat. It sets the temperature, just like a thermostat sitting on the wall, of the conditions of your entire life.
I've been challenged by other people. I've had other people put the mountain in front of me and say, Maxwell, go climb that. And I can tell you right now, I've taken that challenge sometimes and climbed that mountain and felt that I accomplished something great. But let me tell you something about other people's challenges. I may go do that or try to do that, but that may not be where I need to put my time, effort, and energy. Instead of letting other people challenge you, challenge yourself. You know your strengths. You know your dreams. You know your heart. So why don't you sit down and reflect for a moment and ask yourself, what do I really want to accomplish that I haven't accomplished yet? I mean, get on your agenda. Get in your area, in your space, and say, I need to challenge me. When you challenge yourself, you're challenging yourself in an area that is close to your heart, and it's who you are. In other words, the closest way to meet a challenge with a great sense of authenticity is to challenge you.
Before I met Mr. Shoaff, I used to cross my fingers and say, I sure hope things will change. I was hoping the government would change and the tax structure would change and that my boss would change and pay me more money. I was hoping that, economics would change and prices would come down. And I was hoping that circumstances would get better. And then I discovered from my teacher that those things are going to continue the same. In fact, all of those things that happen to us is kind of like the wind that blows. And the wind blows on us all. But if you just let the wind blow, I'm telling you, it won't take you where you want to go. All of us must use this wind to take us to the dreams we've got, to the equities we want, to the money we want, to the income we want, and to all the things we want our life to have. This is where we want to go, and we've got a good wind, but we must not leave our future just to the wind, just to the economy, just to the structure of the way things are happening today.
Too often in life, people don't work on changing their identity. They're always working on producing external results. Have you ever known somebody who was wealthy and no longer is? Have you ever known somebody who made a bunch of money and no longer does? How about somebody who was in a great relationship and that relationship no longer exists? How about someone who got in great shape that is no longer in that shape again? If your results begin to exceed your internal thermostat, you will find a way to cool your life back down to what you believe you're worth and you're comfortable at your identity. You'll think it's coincidental. Oh, this accident happened, or this appointment canceled, or it's not coincidence. All of those things have happened because you set the thermostat of your life and you've regulated what you're going to get. Isn't that incredible? That you can learn all the talents, the behaviors, the skills, the tactics, all the strategies.
Let me give you 3 steps to start life change that can change your life, your personality, your lifestyle, everything can change. Here's the steps. Number 1, find out how things work. The first key to doing better is find out. To change your life, really, you need ideas. There isn't anything an idea can't change. And Shoaff taught me the major problem is lack of an idea, not a problem. At first, I didn't have any money. I said to Mr. Shoaff, I don't have any money. He said, that's not a problem. Now, see, up until then, I always thought it was. Right? I was confused. He said, no, the problem is lack of an idea on how to create money and wealth. It isn't lack of money, it's lack of ideas. So if you get the ideas, see, you can change anything. Now, to get ideas, you need a constant study of finding out. Now, Shoaff also said, when you find out something that works, put the information in your journal. Don't use your head for a filing cabinet. Put it in your journal so that you can do the next best thing. Repetition, repetition, repetition. Go over it. And if you repeat it, go over it, sure enough, someday, some mysterious day, the idea takes root, starts to grow, and shows up in your bank account, and your dress, and your personality, and your lifestyle. But capture the ideas in your journal. Find out how things work. Shof gave me this word for my life change. He said, study. Great word. If you wish to be successful, study success. If you wish to be happy, study happiness. If you wish to be wealthy, study wealth. Don't leave it to chance. Make it a study. Some people just go through the day with their fingers crossed. See, that won't do it. You've got to study the things that can change your economic, social, spiritual, personal life. Now, here's a qualifying phrase. And we'll have several of these qualifying phrases throughout the seminar. Here's the first one. You may not be able to do all you find out. I understand that. You may not be able to do all you find out, but you should find out all you can do. See, you don't want to wind up at the end of your life and discover that you've lived only 1/10 of it. And the other 9/10 went down the drain. Not for lack of opportunity, for lack of information. So that's number one, find out how things work. Now here's the best human virtue for finding out, curiosity. Make a note of that. Curiosity. Be curious. You might add a word to it that'll help. Childish curiosity. What will kids do if they want to know something bad enough? Bug you. That's the phrase. They can ask 1,000 questions. You think they're through? They got another 1,000. They'll drive you to the brink. It's a virtue. When you gotta know, be like a child. In fact, Jesus, the master teacher, said, unless you can become like little children, you might as well forget it. You don't have a prayer. Excellent advice. You gotta be like children. 4 ways, in my opinion, to be like a child. Number 1's curiosity. Number 2 is excitement. Get excited like a child over your ability to make yourself do anything for change. 3rd is faith. Have faith like a child. Adults are too skeptical. And 4th is trust. Trust is a childish virtue, but the rewards are incredible. Now here's the 2nd step to personal development. Okay, number 1 was find out how things work. Here's number 2. Go to work. You must now take action on what you found out. In doing business around the world, we call it game plan. Put together your game plan. One of the major things we teach on the weekend seminars, game plans. How to game plan your office. If you're in sales, you need a game plan. Kids need a game plan. You need a home game plan, social game plan, a business game plan. Everybody needs game plans. Financial independence, game plan. Your investment, game plan. Don't think in your head. Put it on paper. Don't operate out of your mind. Operate from paper. I often ask somebody, what are you going to do the next 6 months? And somebody starts to tell me. I say, no, don't tell me. Show me. Show me your game plan for the next 6 months. Then I can look at things and maybe I can help. But you got to operate from paper. Put it on a game plan. Take action on what you found out. Now here's the best word I know of to go with action. Massive. See, that'll change everything. Massive action is called the cure-all. If you're going to make calls, make a few thousand. If you're going to make contacts, make a few thousand. If you're going to knock on doors, knock on a few thousand. See, that'll change everything. Here's the language of the poor. I'll try it a time or two and see what happens. It's the way poor people talk. The guy says, well, I'll give it 30 days. 30 days. You could guess his bank balance. You've got to have a better game plan. So here's one of the major things to do starting tomorrow. Take a look at your game plan. If it isn't loaded with massive action, change it. tomorrow. Action. The formula really works like this. Pick up a good idea, take heavy action. Pick up a couple of good ideas, take heavy action. That's the formula for success. Heavy action. It's a good thing we can edit all this, right? The formula for success: take heavy action on a good idea. Right? That's the ratio. Now here's the key. Don't wait till you've learned 2,000 or 3,000 things. Because that way you'll use up all the time. And you could wind up smart and broke. And hey, it's okay to be dumb and broke. But if a guy's smart and broke, that's pitiful. Don't let your learning lead to knowledge. You'll become a fool. Let your learning lead to action. You can become wealthy. And there's many kinds of wealth. I understand that. Not just money. Money's one of the least of all values. I know some people with a lot of money that are very poor. Evita sings, as for fortune and as for fame, they are illusions. They're not the solutions they promise to be. So there's all kinds of wealth, but to get a big share coming your way, you've got to have a heavy action game plan. Now here's the third step to personal development, and we'll wrap up personal development. Step number 3, it's just a little caution, and all through life we need little cautions. This one simply says, don't try to beat the system. Find out how it works, work it, but don't try to beat it. Some people learn just enough to start slicing it, shading it, thinning it, cutting corners, and looking for cheap answers. See, don't fall for that. You'll wind up with a cheap life. Find out how it works best and do it that way. Even though it seems to take a little longer, do it right. Don't compromise with right. Now, under this step, here's another key. Be a quick learner. Don't let it take long to teach you. Learn quicker. One guy said he broke his nose 7 times in the same place. Somebody says, looks like you'd stay out of that place. Learn quicker. Now, the third point here is don't be stubborn. See, some people won't change even when a better way comes. They say, well, I've been doing it this way 30 years. Hey, be ready for change. If it's a better way, go for it. But don't try to beat it. Or you'll be like the guy that went to Las Vegas. He didn't have much money, so he didn't want to risk his money gambling. But he gets to Las Vegas and the jackpot bells are ringing, the money's flowing, the lights are flashing, and he can't help himself. He's got to gamble. But instead of gambling with his cash, he decides to play the mental gambling game. And the brilliant scheme he worked out goes like this. He'd pick a number like number 3. Mentally, he would bet a certain amount of money on the number. And whether it won or lost, he would jot down that amount in his little pad. I would have won $5 if I'd have made that bet, just to keep track of it, win or lose. That way, come midnight, he can calculate how he's doing, winner, loser, how much, only not his money. Keep his money. Just play this mental gambling game. So here he is around the gambling table, everybody else shelling out their hard-earned cash. He's got this brilliant scheme. Instead of betting with his money, he's betting with his mind, and he lost his mind. Which means don't try to beat the system, I guess.
Dreams without goals remain dreams, just dreams, and ultimately fuel disappointment. Dreams without goals, yearly goals, life goals, monthly goals, hourly goals, minute by minute goals, Dreams without goals are just dreams, and they ultimately fuel disappointment. Goals on the road to achievement cannot be achieved without discipline and consistency. You understand? Between goals and achievement are discipline and consistency.
Before you can be a painter who can paint what's beyond mere memory, you have to inculcate that discipline skill, and a lot of that is painful repetition and hard grinding work. It's the sacrifice of the present for the future. That's discipline as the precondition for freedom. But once you manage that, then things open up. And virtually everything you learn of value is like that's very, very, very difficult to learn to write. And there's arbitrary rules that you have to follow and bind yourself to. Disciplinary institutions, universities, are exactly that. Is they're places of guidance, and they're places to encourage people to develop the discipline that's necessary to see beyond the discipline. I mean, that's why we have disciplines, right? I mean, the words aren't there by accident. You have to narrow yourself first, and then you can broaden outward. And so that's part of the process of maturation. That's part of the sacrifice of childhood.
What we have to understand about developing ourselves and getting better is that it doesn't take brilliance, and it doesn't take a lot of time, and it doesn't even take a lot of effort, but it must be intentional. The fact that you don't get better automatically, you only get better because you intentionally make a decision to get better. To develop yourself, you've got to get out of the intending world and get into the doing world. So if you want to develop yourself and you want to get better, just act on what you've already expressed that you want to do.
Right, the question becomes this: can you be committed to the process of what you're doing without being emotionally attached to the results of what you're doing? Regardless of situation, regardless of circumstance, regardless of what happened, I'm gonna show up and I'm gonna give everything I got to it because I'm working for something that's totally different. Can you be committed to the process of what you're doing without being emotionally attached to the results of what you're doing? In other words, if you don't get what you thought you was gonna get, will you still be the same individual? If the situation don't turn out the way you thought it would turn out, will you still be the same individual? The quote says it: you judge the character of a man not by where he stands in times of comfort and convenience. You judge the character of a man by where he stands in times of challenge and controversies. Right? I'm talking concrete commitment. Right? Not that commitment, I'm gonna show up, I'll be there, coach. Yeah, I'll go to meetings. Yeah, I'm gonna go out, I might run hard 3 sprints. Not that, man. Not that cheap stuff, man. Not that counterfeit stuff. I'm talking concrete commitment. I'm talking a commitment that says, I am going to stay true to what I said I would do long after the mood that I've set it in has left. Right? Because when you're in them seats, it's easy to talk about what you're going to do. Right? But Mike Tyson said it. Everybody got a plan until they get punched in the mouth. Right? People don't burn out in life because of what they do. People burn out because life makes them forget why they do it. Go back and do some soul searching and think about when you first started.
Many people give up on the 1 yard line, where if they have the determination just to keep on knocking. It's a funny thing about life. If you're home one day and someone is knocking on the door and you say, I don't want to be bothered today, and if that person just keep on knocking, say, can you believe that fool's still knocking? Pretty soon you say, what is it? What do you want? And that's how you've got to be about your dream. Some people, well, I guess ain't nobody home. I knocked on the door, but nobody came. I guess opportunity probably went out the back door. Oh, no. See, life is not just that simple. It's not that cut and dry. And that's why most people never realize their personal greatness, because they're casual about life. And when you are casual about life, you will end up a casualty.
Some of your thoughts and visions are so big and so outlandish and so powerful and amazing, you'll end up talking yourself out of that dream from saying, I can't afford that. Well, guess what? There's a lot of shit I can't afford. There's a lot of visions and dreams that I still can't afford. I came here to remind you that when people laugh at your visions and ideas, it's only because they don't have their own visions and ideas around what they're supposed to do with their life or their careers. People that don't have their own visions, they become vision killers. They don't have dreams for themselves. They don't have any hopes. They're hopeless. They're uninspired, unmotivated. They have no dreams. They have nothing that they're ambitious about. But I want to remind you to continue to dream and dream big. I have a habit of dreaming with my eyes open. I get very inspired by the things I see. I just wanted to remind you to dream and dream big. You have to be able to see what doesn't exist in order to be able to pull off or achieve what in most people's minds seems to be impossible. Only those that can see the invisible, being able to see what's not there. What is your vision? What is your idea? What was that God-sent dream? Only those that can see the invisible can do what seems to be impossible. You have to be relentless. You have to never let off the gas, never stop, never quit. Never allow anyone to talk you out of the dream, the vision, and ideas that God has sent you. And understand that for every level, there's another devil.